Turn with me in your Bibles this evening once again to the book of Ecclesiastes, and we'll be picking up in verse 9 of the 11th chapter of Ecclesiastes this evening. It is a blessing to be here. Good to see everyone. Those who are able to be here, it is certainly appreciated. I did notice that Lori and Tim and Beverly all had to leave, and that's understandable. I'm just happy to see them when they're here. It's extremely encouraging. I know how much of an effort it is for them to get out and be with us. And so it certainly is appreciated and encouraging too. And that's going to fit in pretty well actually with what we're going to be discussing tonight. If you're using a song book, you may want to go ahead and mark number 190. That'll be the invitation song after our lesson. I began working on this and I was focusing in on verse 9 of chapter 11 and going on into chapter 12 and verse 1, and that being the emphasis. And then I got to thinking, this being Sunday evening, I want to preach this on Sunday morning. So what I'm going to do is we're going to kind of jump ahead, and we're going to jump to verse 2 of chapter 11 or chapter 12 tonight. And we'll mention the first several verses, but we're going to jump back next Sunday morning when we have most of our younger people here, because I think it's something that they need to hear. And if you're a parent, I want to encourage you to have your young people here next Sunday morning. That's what we're going to be talking about. Remembering your Creator in the days of your youth. That will be our focus. As I began to working on that sermon, it just kept growing and growing anyway. So it's good that we're going to split it up. Just a little backwards. But tonight we're going to be focusing on the need to remember our Creator before the difficult days come, because the difficult days will come. And that's what we're going to be looking at this evening. You know, life is full of disappointments. It's full of hardships, challenges, especially as we grow older. Many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. We have many here who are experiencing those growing pains. This time a year ago, my eyesight was 20/20. And all of a sudden, I began to see lights one night on the way home from graduation. I saw these lights flashing, and Denise made a doctor's appointment and found out that my retina was beginning to detach, and I had to have laser surgery on both eyes, and I'm continuing to have more and more difficulty as time goes by. I can't read my Bible standing here unless I put my glasses on. That's part of getting older, isn't it, Herb? It's part of it. I'm not as old as Herb, and I don't care what Ashton said the other night, I'm not as old as dirt yet. I'm not. But I am getting older, and I feel it. And as we go through life, as we grow older, you know, we begin to experience things we may want to wonder why. You know, why does it have to be this way? We live in a world that is secularized, and we're wanting to find solutions to all of our problems. We want to find solutions to everything. One of the things that our world tries to do is get around the consequences of sin. You know, they try that really hard. They work night and day trying to get around the consequences of sin. You can't do that, but they try. And in the process, though, they may make some things a little better as we live in this world. But I sometimes wonder about the overall consequences. I mean, I've watched my dad, who is going to be turning 93 next week. And a couple of years ago, he was doing pretty good. He's still working just 4 years ago. 89 years old, still working. Still driving. But that all changed when he fell one afternoon in the kitchen and hit his head and almost died. And he hasn't been able to walk since. I mean, I know that Missy experiences that with her mom, Frances. And all of us have experienced that to some degree. So things get more difficult as we get older, and science comes along and thinks we have a solution. We're going to let people live longer. And I sometimes wonder about the wisdom in that. You know, I'll tell you right now, when I get to the point where my life is no longer able to be enjoyed, I can't be productive in any way, I just as soon not lay there in a bed for 4, 5, 10 years, you know, wasting away and not able to do anything. I'd rather go on and be with the Lord. But, you know, my dad's 93. He can't walk. He's there in a nursing home. And so I'm glad he's still here. So you've got that struggle. But still, I know how he feels. I know when he fell and he found out he would never walk again, he was ready to go. And I can't blame him. Can't blame him at all. I do know that he's handled it really well. Every time I go to see him, you know, he's happy. All the nurses, they love him. They think he's the greatest thing ever. Just the sweetest old man they've ever met. And he is. He's always been a humble, gentle, meek man, and he's happy. But I know deep down he struggles. It's hard. So we understand these things. Things get tougher as we get older. The book of Ecclesiastes is filled with it. It points us out from the beginning to the end. What's the first verse say? Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. We know that this world is hard, and it gets harder as it goes. Beginning in verse 9 of chapter 11, Solomon says, "Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes, but know that for all these God will bring you into judgment. Therefore remove sorrow from your heart and put away evil from your flesh. For childhood and youth are vanity. Remember now the Creator in the days of your youth, before the difficult days come, and the years draw near when you say, I have no pleasure in them. While the sun and the light, the moon and the stars are not darkened, and the clouds do not return after the rain. And the day when the keepers of the house tremble and the strong men bow down, when the grinders cease because they are few, and those who look through the windows grow dim, when the doors are shut in the streets and the sound of grinding is low, when one rises up to the sound of a bird, and all the daughters of music are brought low. Also they are afraid of height, and of terrors in the way. When the almond tree blossoms, the grasshopper is a burden, and desire fails. For man goes to his eternal home, and the mourners go about the streets. Remember your Creator before the silver cord is loosed, or the golden bowl is broken, or the pitcher shattered at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the well. When the dust will return to the earth as it was, and the spirit will return to God who gave it. Vanity of vanity, says the preacher. All is vanity. Yes, tonight we're going to be focusing on remember your Creator before the silver cord is loosed. As I said, we're going to back up and pick up the other part next Sunday morning, but tonight, listen, as we all get older, as we go through this world, it's very important that we develop a spiritual worldview. I mean, we live in a world, again, it's secularized, and people are looking at it from purely a materialistic worldview, and I tell you what, that's very depressing. No wonder so many people are angry today. No wonder people are so mad at everybody. No wonder they can't stand people speaking about God and things that are right, you know. But we nevertheless need a worldview that is spiritual. But in order to do that, we have to have an understanding of our Creator, because He's the one who gives us that accurate worldview. I was watching a video. Now, I don't know a whole lot about Charlie Kirk. I did not know a lot about him. I knew who he was. I'd seen him before. But some of the things that I've seen just in the last few days, I know he was in an interview and he was talking about the need to understand and see things from a spiritual perspective, because that's one thing that so many young people, and that was his focus, so many young people fail. They don't get that perspective from where they come from their home life, from the education that they're getting, from the world, from the TV. They don't get that. Listen, we need a spiritual worldview, and he emphasized that. And he says, we know, I don't know what he knew, but what he said was true. By the way, truth is truth regardless of who says it, right? And so he made the point that, hey, if you have a spiritual worldview, you know the truth about everything. You know the way things really work, way things really are. The cover is lifted off and you can see things as they truly are. And I thought that was just a great point, and we need to have that perspective in life, a spiritual worldview. Whether his was correct and accurate or not, I don't know. But I know that that point is true. If God's will governs our desires, if he governs our goals, then the joy that we will have will come, because the result of our labor and our efforts, we know, will not be wasted. It's for a good purpose, actually an eternal purpose. And so we have that understanding, and Philippians chapter 4 does talk about that. So we'll talk about those things again next Sunday morning. Remember the Creator in the days of your youth. Many here this evening, we're beyond the period of youth. Maybe you squandered your youth. Maybe we were not godly. And I've known so many people who've lived their young, active adult lives, and even to the point of middle age, and then they wake up and they decide they're going to follow the Lord. Well, that's great, and I'm thankful that they remembered the Creator before the silver cord was loosed. But now you've got all of this in your history, your past, your regrets, that you can't change. You can't undo it. Not teaching your children and bringing them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. You can't go back and redo that. You can't change it. That's why it's so important to remember the Creator in the days of your youth, right? But okay, we're past that, and here we are in our older years. What we need to do is, wherever we are, serve the Lord. And there's nothing we can change about the past, but we need to remember the Creator before the silver cord is loose, that's for sure. Soon, the day in which we will stand before the Lord will come, and we'll give an account to Him. Of all of the things that happen as we grow older, the inconveniences, afflictions, pains, and aches, of all the things that we're not able to do that we used to do, the days will get, and this is just reality. I hope we have the spiritual perspective to understand the reality and not allow that to just depress us, because that's where a spiritual reality really comes into play here. Some days will be good days, but there'll be more bad days than good days as we get older. That is just the reality of it. Finding pleasure in the things that are around us becomes more difficult, although we find pleasure in other things that we probably never realized how much those things are pleasure to us. I'll tell you what, I raised 2 boys, and that I don't want to go back and do that again. But one of the reasons why I am so thankful I had 2 sons is now I got 9 grandkids. They're pretty cool. That's what you have kids for, to have grandkids. Ain't that right? That's it. So there are other things, we find pleasure in other things. Now, we can't do all the things with our grandkids that we could do with our kids. But we learn to enjoy things perhaps better and from a different perspective. But when the wise man says there's no pleasure, but I have no pleasure in them, he's talking about, the things that we used to find pleasure in. When I was in Salt Lake City visiting 4 of my grandkids and visiting Brandon and Kelly, I went outside and I just shot a little hoops with Micah. And I tell you, it wasn't 10 minutes. I wasn't playing hard. I was just going around shooting. I got so winded. Of course, I'm at 4,500 feet in elevation. That makes a little difference. But I got so winded, I had to go get my inhaler. Thankfully, I had it with me. And I couldn't breathe. Scared me a little bit. I can't do the things that I used to could do. I'm finding that out pretty quick. We don't find pleasure in things that we used to find pleasure in. The golden years for many can turn into being very depressing, especially if we don't have that spiritual background. if we don't have that spiritual foundation upon which we've built our life. Now, if you wait till you're 60, 70, 80 years old to start that, it's going to be harder. I hope that makes sense to you. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. If you were ungodly in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, as you get into your 60s, happily enjoying the final years of your life is going to be difficult. Doesn't mean you can't be joyful in finding the Lord and serving Him, but there will be those regrets that come along. And I've heard the stories. I know a couple of individuals in particular that they didn't serve the Lord when they were younger. They raised their kids, not bringing them to church, and then they came to the Lord in their 60s, and their children are unfaithful, and that's the biggest regret in their life. So, younger people, don't let that be yours. So, the following metaphors are used to describe the aging process. Some of these things, certainly, we can all relate to. And by the way, as medical advances have, yes, in a sense, improved, people are living longer, but their quality of life, not perhaps so much. It's helped some, it's helped, I guess, quite a bit, but we are now living longer without having that quality of life. The question is, how long will we be productive in our spiritual walk, in our serving the Lord? We need to be active in doing the best that we can with what we have, regardless of where we are. While the sun and the light, the moon, the stars are not darkened, and the clouds do not return after the rain. I do very much appreciate the songs that Christopher chose this evening. The first one, when the storm passes over. Okay? Here's a reality as you get older. Y'all can relate to this. You know what? It seems like if it's not one thing, it's something else. And as you get older, those one things, they come faster and faster, right? It's one thing after another. With health challenges, just getting older and things not working like they should, old age brings some complications, brings problem after problem. It seems like when one storm ends, here comes another one on the horizon. And that's exactly what the wise man is saying here. The clouds do not return after the rain. The keepers of the house shall tremble. The metaphor here references the hands and the arms. They tremble. They shake. Those, whether it be like Brother Herb with Parkinson's, you know, I know that's a real challenge. That is a difficulty. He's bearing it like a champ, but I know it's hard. Our limbs do get weaker. Our hands get weaker. Arthritis comes along. The men of power shall bow themselves or bow down. And I think of my dad. You know, he walks on his walker. When he could walk, he would walk on his walker, and he would be just, you know, I was scared he could zip over frontwards because he was not over that thing. But his back was bent because several years ago he fell out of a deer stand and broke his neck. And he could, to this day, he can't lay down on the floor and touch his head to the floor because they didn't set the brace right when they fixed it. But he's always been somebody who just bowed over, and the legs, the backs become weaker and weaker. The grinders cease because there are few. Teeth begin to fall out. Eating becomes more difficult. Well, certainly brush your teeth like you should. Your teeth should last longer and all of that. We understand, but still, you get problems as you grow older. We have false teeth and all kinds of medical advances that's made that better, but still. Those that look through the windows grow dim. The eyes. As people get older, their eyes do become more blurry. can't see as clearly, can't read. And of course, again, with all the medical advances, boy, how things have improved. But just think about just 100 years ago, how difficult it was getting older. When the doors are shut in the streets. Bible Knowledge Commentary says this has reference to the hearing. You can't hear what's going on in the street. So does J.E. Smith, the author of the Wisdom Literature series. And Jameson Fawcett Brown says this has reference to the lips. The doors are shut in the streets. Your mouth. I don't know where he gets that from, but that's what he says. And of course, it seems like the most obvious thing is the doors are shut in the streets. Your mobility is very much hindered. You can't go where you like to go. You can't go where you used to could go, especially not on your own. You can go with help. Your mobility is very much decreased. That's just a part of growing older. And the sound of grinding is low when one rises up at the sound of a bird. Your hearing does go. I've always been kind of hard of hearing. I don't know if it was riding with my stereo too young people, riding with your stereos too loud in your car. It's not good for your hearing. Of course, also when you work in construction and you don't wear earplugs, beating the hammer and the nail guns and the saws and all the other things that make a lot of noise. But your hearing does get worse as you get older. Again, we have some medical advances that help with hearing aids and such, but still it's an inconvenience, and things get worse as you get older. But also you can't enjoy the things that you used to could enjoy. Your enjoyment of music and those kinds of things are hindered because of the aging process. Life gets harder as you get older. Well, you don't doubt that. I think we all understand it. We get it. We know. Okay, so here's the point, right? Serve the Lord while you have the opportunity. Now, they're afraid of height and of terrors in the way. When I was younger, I could run up an extension ladder just like that, jump up on the roof. I didn't have any problem working on roofs. I've worked on some very high buildings. Wasn't really scared of heights. Now, every time I pull up to a house, if it's a two-story house, I don't get on it. And I'll tell you what, even these low 5-12 pitch roofs, and they're just 9 feet above the ground, my extension ladder goes up, and I'll get up there, and I'm very, very careful. Because I don't have the agility that I used to have, and I know it. It's kind of scary. When the almond tree blossoms, your hair turns white. When the grasshopper is a burden, even small chores, trying to do things that are small and simple become more difficult. Just bending over to pick up something you dropped on the floor is not as easy as it used to be. That's why we have those little things, right? And I got my dad one. He picks stuff up with it. Desire fails. Certainly sexual desire, that's probably been out the window for a while, but hey, the other enjoyable activities, things that you might, have found pleasurable in the past, you can't do or you just don't feel like doing anymore. Things just get harder. But okay, as we grow older as Christians, we find ourselves becoming less able to do things that we want to do. How do we deal with that? Well, we've got to be understanding. We have to, again, recognize that's just the way things are. Being accepting of our circumstances, sometimes pride, it doesn't let us quite accept that. I know when Dad finally, he finally agreed to go into a nursing facility. That was hard. He's been very independent all of his life, taking care of himself, taking care of his family. He has never had to be taken care of by anybody till 3 years ago. And now he can't take care of himself at all. That's hard. But if you built your life upon the Lord and upon your faith in Him, you are able and you're equipped to handle it. How terrible it must be not to be a believer, not to have something to look forward to. So the time to serve God is now while we can, serving to the best of our ability while we can, because the day will come when we will not be able to do the things that we used to do. And may the Lord grant us the strength and the wisdom to recognize when we can't and accept that. As verse 5, the latter part of verse 5 says, "For man goes to his eternal home, and the mourners go about the streets." Death is coming for all of us, and we go to our eternal home. And there are three different metaphors that the wise man uses here: the silver cord and the golden bowl. When the silver cord is loosed, or the golden bowl is broken. The golden bowl perhaps is a reservoir of oil for a lamp, representing the light going out. And even the fuel for that is shattered and is no more. And you have just the life cord broken. And the pitcher shattered at the well. Pitchers can get broken pretty easy, especially outside by a well where there are a lot of rocks. And that's one of the things that I think that metaphor really does indicate. Life is really fragile. So life's vessel, if you will, is very easily broken. In fact, that's something that's really to me, it's something that I need to think about, I think, more often, how fragile life is. I mean, just one little virus cell gets in your body. Just one. Multiplies. Your body's not able to fight it off, and you die. So, you just never know how and when the end will come. The wheel is broken at the well. Picture is, of course, the bucket on the rope and the wheel, and you let it down the well and you pull the water up. Well, the apparatus is broken, and so no longer can you bring up water. Again, the picture of life coming to an end. There's no saving it. The dust will return to the earth from which it came, and the spirit will return to God who gave it. That's what is awaiting each and every one of us. And many people wonder, well, what happens to us when we die? Well, our body goes to the ground, turns back to dust. Our spirit returns to God who gave it. It goes into the spiritual realm. The New Testament uses the word Hades. All right? And that's the place of the departed spirits. But in the resurrection, when Jesus comes again, the spirit and the body will be reunited. That's the resurrection. And death will be conquered in victory for those who are, of course, who are in Christ Jesus. That's what we're looking forward to. Death is not the end. In reality, death is the beginning. So we think about the world and the body. What an important metaphor for the world itself. I mean, we see things that come and go. Every spring we see flowers bloom, and then they wither, fall comes, everything dies, leaves fall off the trees, death. What happens next spring? Thing comes back to life. God has built into this creation over and over and over again the message that there is something after death. And just because death comes, we need to realize that's why we need that spiritual perspective. There is something more. There is the afterlife. There is eternity with God forever. So, okay, we need to enjoy the gift of life that God has given us. We need to use what we have, where we are, the best we can in service to God. We need to realize that we will be held accountable for what we do and how we use our time here on this earth. By the way, that picture, I thought the young boy is reading the newspaper and the old man is looking at his computer. I think that's pretty backwards, don't you? The boy probably had to teach the old man how to use the computer. But life is fleeting. And everything changes, everything comes to its eventual end. That's just the cycle of life. So, remember the Creator while you have an opportunity. Serve Him. As Paul says in 2 Corinthians 6 and verse 2, for he says, in an acceptable time I have heard you, and in the day of salvation I have helped you. Behold, now is the accepted time. Behold, now is the day of salvation. Maybe you're here this evening, you never rendered obedience to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Tonight you can do that. I don't care how old you are. If you're old enough to understand that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, you believe that in your heart, and you are capable of making a committed decision to follow Him, to obey Him, to be buried with Him in baptism, then all the way from there to you can't walk, you can't do anything by yourself, but if you're able to yield your heart in obedience to Jesus Christ, we'll help you, we'll baptize you, we'll do whatever's necessary. We had that very thing happen just a year ago, a couple of years ago, and Roger has since passed away. But what was necessary to help him obey the gospel was done. So wherever you are in your life, won't you come to the Lord? If we can help you, won't you come while together we stand? While we sing.
Come feed and love the Lord, and let our joys be known.